Hey, She That listeners, find us on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Every subscribe, like, and follow goes a long way, and I can't thank you all enough for your support. And with that, let's get into today's episode. Hey everyone, welcome back to She That. It's your host, Alyxandra, and if you're listening to this, chances are you're either in the thick of tryouts, just survived your first week back to school, or you're about to dive into both. Today, we're going to get real about the transition from summer you to student athlete you. And I'm not going to just tell you, you've got this. I'm going to tell you how you've got this. So I've been recording this, and I know some of you already have had tryouts. Some of you already made your team and have your first game this week. Some of you are wondering if you even want to play this year. You might have a pit in your stomach right now going into your first week of school. So let's talk about it. I remember vividly every first week of school, I felt like I had adrenaline, jitters. I was excited, but I was also stressed going into a new routine and rhythm and navigating the life adjustment from how relaxed my summer was versus now going back into dealing with school and sports and friends and football games and who's going to hang out with who on the weekend. And there's such a pro and con about starting fresh, right? You have a clean slate. You're going into classes that you don't have grades in yet. You haven't played a game yet, so you don't know your spot on your team specifically. And you could be lying in bed the night before school and your mind might be racing through every possible scenario for tomorrow. What if I'm in the wrong group at tryouts? What if everyone's better than me? What if I forgot how to serve? What if my classes are harder than I thought? Here's what's actually happening. Your brain is trying to protect you by preparing for every possible outcome. And it really is an anxiety being mean. I think as humans, we're meant to have some form of anxiety, honestly, but it's your mind trying to help just in the least helpful way possible. And there's ways that you need to connect with those parts that are jumping up at you and trying to calm them down a little bit further. What I used to do is write down the top 3 things that I was worried about before starting school or sports. And seriously, grab your phone notes right now and write them down. And next to each one, write the actual likelihood of it happening. Because I feel like our brains always go to a worst case scenario. And 99% of the time, the worst case scenario never happens. And get this, even if the worst case scenario happens for anything, you will still be okay and you will still have a comeback. Let's say you're worried about being the worst on your team and everybody is better than you. But like, really? Do you really believe that every single person improved more than you and you stayed exactly the same throughout the summer? When you see it written out, your brain can actually start to recognize how unrealistic our fears can be. And once I have those listed, I would always write 3 things down that I know to be true. So I've been playing volleyball for 5 or 8 years already. I made the team last year. I've been conditioning this summer and showing up to open gyms. Those are facts, and your anxiety can't argue with facts. Here's my favorite trick, too. If you feel like you're about to have a breakdown or if things seem overwhelming going through these new adjustments, set a timer. Give yourself 5 minutes to cry or vent or sit there and watch a show to decompress. And feel free to imagine the worst. Truly allow your brain to say, hey, this is the worst case scenario. And guess what? Even if it happens, I'm going to be fine. Once your timer's done, you've given your anxiety its moment, you've acknowledged it and validated it, and now it's time to move forward. Make sure you have everything laid out, and yeah, not just your clothes, but everything. You got your sports bags, you got your school bag, which I remember carrying both, and it was such a pain to have both. And I always had weird nightmares that I would forget my volleyball bag at home and not be able to practice. And those nightmares seem so real. And when I say that out loud, I'm like, okay, so what? Like the worst case is you don't practice. Does it look good? No. But you can either have somebody bring you your bag. There's so many things that our brain doesn't logically think through and our anxiety just drives within us. And the more you control prior, the less your brain can spiral about the next day or the next week. Every decision you make now is one less thing to worry about tomorrow. So let's get specific about tryouts because just do your best isn't the most helpful advice. I love to say that all we can do is our best. But if you're new to tryouts, you probably walked in, and if you haven't, you're going to walk in. And everybody might seem like they're best friends forever. They're maybe stretching together, laughing, already wearing matching pre-wrap. You're going to feel like an outsider, but this is normal no matter if you're a seasoned senior coming back or a new freshman. And as long as you're arriving early, giving yourself time to observe, watch what other people are doing. If they're setting their bags in a specific area, watch how they warm up. Find one person that you can make eye contact with and introduce yourself, just one ally for the year, and just break the ice with as many people as you can. I know it's awkward, but I promise you, your peers will be grateful that you took the initiative to do that. Everybody's nervous. And if you're returning, the pressure is different for you, right? Coaches know what you can do. So on an off day, it could feel catastrophic. And you're also comparing yourself to last year's you, not just to everybody else. But the strategy that I like to remind everybody going into a new season is treat it like you have something to prove because you do, but it's probably not what you think. You're not proving you deserve last year's spot. You're proving you've grown. Show one new skill, one thing you've improved on. Find your niche for this year because it doesn't mean that last year's strong skill set for you is the one that you're going to leverage the most this year. Coaches notice development more than maintenance. And here's the thing about freshmen who are really good, right? Be the first to high five the freshmen when they make a great play. Coaches notice attitude as much as ability, and the girls who's threatened by no talent, they look weak. The girl who celebrates it, they look like a leader. When you mess up going into a new season, and you will, I want you to really dig deep and focus on having an immediate reset. A verbal acknowledgement, maybe, of the situation for your brain. Remember, we got to keep it in check. And then have that next play mentality. So if a ball shinks off your arms during that first practice or that tryout, clap once and say, my bad, I got it next time. And immediately get back to ready position for the next play. The coaches aren't watching for perfection. I've never met one person in my life in any sport that was perfect in every play or every touch or every pass. Coaches are watching for resilience. There is a schedule shock probably going into a new routine in general. And everybody says you'll get used to the schedule, but how do you get used to a schedule? For me, I love routine. So I think getting back into school actually made me look forward to a new routine and adjustment. But even then, it's still a huge adjustment. That first week, you're running on pure adrenaline. At least that's what I did. Week two, you're crashing. You're exhausted. Your body and brain are not used to working this hard, having full time school and being a full time athlete. And the week after that, you either need to figure it out or you're going to burn out. What I like to do is use my phone calendar app. I try to input everything, not just like my practice time or my school schedule, but the times that I actually am allocating for myself outside of the chaos and being realistic with it. If practice ends at 6 and you're not home till 6:30 or even after talking to coaches and teammates, you're not going to probably get to your homework until well after 7. So just take into consideration the actual time you have. It's probably less than you ever thought, but at least now you know and can tangibly see it. It's no more magical thinking or stress of how am I going to do 3 hours of homework in 30 minutes? That's just not realistic. And not all homework, as we know, is created equal. So if there's things due tomorrow that count for a grade, you're going to do it during the day or immediately after you're home from practice or school. If it's due tomorrow just for completion, try to do it on the bus or maybe during lunch. If it's due later in the week, but it's a bigger project, I try to break it out like 20 minutes per night, no exceptions. And then if it's due later in a smaller assignment, honestly, take a few minutes on your weekend, like Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon, and just get it done and out of the way. For me, I would come home, I'd either have a snack or eat dinner, and I would get my homework done immediately and then go out and play capture the flag or whatever we do with our friends after for the rest of the night. I never left my homework until right before bed. It just was not useful for me or my brain. And I knew once I could check the box, it was done. I had that relief of freedom of anything else hanging over my head for that day. And you do have 3 peak energy windows. I know everybody's different, but at least for me, I feel like the morning before school, I was able to either last minute study or cram some last minute work in. You also have that immediately after school, whether right before practice or right after practice. And then after dinner is really when I would just try to crank anything out that I could. I felt like for me, whenever it hit 8 or 9 p.m., my brain was just mush from the day. And I really could not do my calculus homework at 11 p.m. And that's how that was for me. I know everybody's different, but I really only use late night times for smaller tasks, such as organizing my notes, setting up tomorrow's planner, or responding to any texts I have on my phone or things like that. I do want to get into managing the social dynamics on top of school and sports. I just remember that being one of my anxieties going back to school. Who you're spending most of your time with? What are your friends who aren't playing sports doing? Are you going to have time for them? Who is everybody hanging out with on the weekends? The social juggling isn't just hard, it actually can be exhausting. And I want to walk you through how to handle this the best way. So, if you have friends that aren't playing the sports that you are, and they don't have the same practice schedule every day after school, that kind of eliminates that extra amount of time that you could have with them. But don't apologize for your schedule, right? If you're playing a sport, you are deciding to make that commitment. And instead of telling them, hey, like I have practice every day, they're going to get the hang of your routine just as much as you do. And you can always say, hey, I have practice until 6, but I'm free after 7:30. Maybe we can FaceTime or we can get together for homework or something. And just give other options. I always felt like if I wasn't able to do something with a friend, I would try to find another day to have a set plan so that I could just get it on my calendar and out of the way. Or else I feel like it would probably never happen. If they play different sports, ways to support me. So I would tell them my game schedule. Hey, come to my game on Thursday. Save me a seat at lunch since I'm coming from this class. People want to help, but they just don't know how to. So always give those opportunities to others if you still want to maintain a close friendship with them. Now, if you have teammates that you don't click with, and mind you, this is a life skill. This isn't something that's just, oh, in sports, I don't get along with this person. You're going to have coworkers, you're going to have family members, you're going to have friends of friends that you really just don't click with. And believe it or not, that's okay. I always felt like growing up, I was like, I want to be friends with everybody. I love making friends. But the truth is, we only have room for so many people in our lives, and they fulfill different circles and different roles in our lives. You do have your smaller circle of people that you're talking to frequently. You have the next size circle who maybe you talk to on a weekly basis, and then it just continues to go out from there. And I had to be comfortable with that people could still be in my life and not be in my immediate direct circle. And that's okay. And you don't have to be best friends with all of your teammates, but for your team, you do have to be functional. Find one thing you guys can connect on. Maybe you both hate the same drill, or maybe you watch the same Netflix show. One connection point to somebody, and again, even if you're completely different people, makes everything easier for not only you, but your team. And when there's drama, and there will be, have a go to phrase. Try to identify how you can set boundaries in environments that you really don't have time for. Like you can say, hey, I'm focusing on the game right now. I don't have time for this conversation. And continue to repeat those same statements that you find works best for you. Don't engage, don't pick sides. Just say, I'm focusing on my game right now. It's neutral, it's true, and it shuts down attempts to drag you into unnecessary drama that you don't want to be a part of. And just because your best friend is in drama with somebody else does not mean you have any reason that you feel like you have to insert yourself. I am a big loyalty person. When somebody hurts one of my friends, I do feel deep about it. And there have been times where I've either A, cut out the person who hurt my friend, or B, really just distance myself from those individuals. But at the end of the day, you are entitled to have whoever in your life that makes the most sense to you. It's okay to be friends with people your friends aren't friends with. It's okay to also set boundaries and not want certain people in your life. And I feel like as long as you have the deep understanding that you can still be a genuine, true friend, regardless of others' dynamics, that's really important. And that's okay. When it comes to teachers, I do recommend having that conversation the first week of school. Hey, I'm playing volleyball in the fall. I might miss class for a few of these games, or I'll have a more hectic schedule. I will make sure to always get notes from classmates. I'll make sure none of my work is late. But what is the best way to handle any additional stressors for this class specifically? That just shows that you're being proactive, responsible, and respectful of your teacher's time as well. They're putting effort into you, and it's really important to return it. And that's probably 90% of any potential teacher problems that you could have right there just by having those initial conversations. When I would start a new season, whether it was club or school, I always remember just being so sore. Like my body, those first few weeks back, and you're practicing probably for multiple hours every single day after walking around the whole school carrying a heavy backpack. I just remember being extremely sore and it impacting pretty much everything I did outside of school or sports. So I'm going to give you a little strategy how to handle the soreness that you're experiencing and to get your body used to it a little bit quicker. So the first few days, at least for me, everything hurt. And that's a normal muscle shock, right? Like your muscles are so tense now. And the best way to handle that is like a hot shower in the morning to loosen things up. ice packs at night for any sharp pain, and rolling out on a foam roller for 5 minutes before bed hurts, but it works. Once you get to like day 4 to 7, so like the end of that first week of everyday practices, your body does start to adapt. Obviously, you're still sore, but keep moving on days off. Light walks, easy bike riding, anything to keep your blood flowing is important. I used to sometimes think I'm just going to lay in bed all day Saturday. And it's nope. Actually, what the best thing for me is to kind of get some movement in. Sitting still makes everything worse. Once you get over that first week, the soreness should be more muscle fatigue than pain, and learn the difference. Because if you're experiencing pain, your body could be even in a worse shock, and hopefully your school has a trainer to leverage. But fatigue improves with warm up and pain gets worse. So don't be a hero about pain, especially about volleyball. This sport is so hard on our bodies. Like, we are not meant to be jumping on the floor that we're jumping on. We are meant to have better training on how to protect our backs, our hips, our knees, our ankles, especially our shoulders. I've had plenty of injuries in volleyball and barely know anybody who hasn't had something. And your body recovery is the only way that you're going to have a successful career in this sport. Make sure you're fueling yourself. I know everybody says this and it's exhausting to hear, but like, you want as much protein as you can get, your carbs, you need sustained energy, snacks before practice, a little protein shake, chocolate milk. My high school coach actually got us sponsored from one of our grocery stores with chocolate milk every Friday after practice, and it was so freaking good. But that was just like one cool thing that we had a little incentive to refuel our bodies once we were done with the week. One of my main tips is keeping emergency snacks everywhere: your locker, your backpack, your sports bag, your car. Hangry athlete makes bad decisions on and off the court. I will say that. So when it comes to the confidence game and building real resilience, everybody talks about confidence like it's something you either have or you don't. And that's wrong. It's something you build deliberately. So every night, I want you to try to write down 3 things. One thing you did well that day, either made a good pass, answered a question in class, one thing you improved on from yesterday. So maybe you ran faster in conditioning, maybe you understood something better from an IQ perspective on the court. And lastly, identify one thing that you'll focus on tomorrow, like being more vocal, getting to class earlier, packing a snack that you forgot the day before. This isn't toxic positivity. This is like you're training your brain to notice the growth and being incentivized by what you've been improving on and progressing on instead of just focusing on failures. I feel like sometimes we're so hard on ourselves. Social media doesn't help either. Comparison doesn't help. And when our brain is more focused on the positives, we're less likely to focus on the failures. And that's just giving us incentives for us to continue to work harder, especially in high school. And I mean, it goes through our whole lives for sure, especially as females. But when you catch yourself comparing to others, immediately ask yourself, am I better than I was last month? And that is the only comparison that matters. You are not meant to be like Sally on your team. You are not meant to be like Maria. Everyone else is on their own timeline. And if you need to, delete social media apps for temporary times, even during the season, or at least unfollow accounts that make you feel inadequate. Your mental health is more important than seeing everybody's highlight reel on social media. And we all know that's not reality. We're literally seeing snippets of the highlights of people's lives, and we all have ups and downs. And I have done that myself where I've unfollowed accounts that didn't make me feel great, or I would delete the app for a few weeks. And it is crazy how tied we are to social media nowadays. So if you start noticing that, I do recommend to challenge yourself and try to find a way to distance yourself from that. And you are going to mess up in games, in practice, in classes. And here's your recovery system. You're going to acknowledge it, maybe to yourself. Feel free to vent to your friends or parents, but this is something that you have to work through internally. Identify why it happened. Were you tired? Were you distracted? Do you just need more practice? Decide one thing to do differently next time. Now, this is the difference between mistakes and failures. Mistakes are great. Make mistakes as much as you want. But a failure is when you continue to make the same mistake without making any changes. And that's something that's in our control. And then lastly, move the heck on. Move forward. Yesterday doesn't define you today. And a minute ago doesn't define you in a minute from now. So just really try to have that short-term memory. Focus on it. Work on it, move forward. The athletes and students that are the most successful aren't the ones who don't make mistakes. They're the ones who recover the fastest and don't allow their mistakes to turn into failure. A lot of girls start sports and they made a team that they either expected or didn't expect. And I think there comes a time for some people that they get into the first week or two of the season. They're feeling out their coach, whether it's a returning coach or a new coach. They're filling out their new team and sometimes have the thought in their head of quitting. So when you want to quit, I really like to give it a 24-hour rule. Never ever quit a sport or pull yourself out of a class or change a dynamic to something on a bad day. Feel your feelings, vent to someone safe, sleep on it if you have to. But if you still want to quit tomorrow, then sure, feel free to consider it. Never make permanent decisions on temporary emotions. When you feel burnt out, which I feel like happens to every single person in this world, take a fake sick day if you have to. I know parents are like, no, you're going to school whether you're sick or not, but it's like one mental health day will not ruin your season or your grades, but pushing through genuine burnout might. So if you're listening to this the night before it all starts, or you're in the thick of the first week or two considering quitting in week 3, this is your sign that you're exactly where you're supposed to be. This adjustment to student athlete isn't just hard, it's one of the hardest things you'll do at your age. You're essentially working 2 full-time jobs while your body's still growing, your brain's still developing, you're figuring out so much stuff in this moment going back to school. And here's what I know is the skills that you're building now, time management under pressure, performing when exhausted, recovering from public failure, pushing through when every part of you wants to quit or not put up with things anymore. These aren't just sports skills, they're life superpowers. You're not just surviving this transition, you're becoming the kind of person who can handle anything. It's resilience, it's confidence. And again, it doesn't happen overnight, and you sure as heck aren't born with it. So, tomorrow, when that alarm goes off too early, or when practice feels impossible, when you're doing homework on the bus again, or you're in the thick of drama within or outside of the sport, remember that you're not just getting through it, you're becoming unstoppable. The boy drama you're experiencing, I promise you in a year from now, you're going to forget about it or you're going to look back and laugh. If you're warming the bench this season, next year you could be a starter. So just remember that you're not just getting through it, you're becoming unstoppable. Keep showing up. Try to use these strategies. And remember, you're not just acing it, you're becoming the person who aces everything. Good luck this season and school year. Thank you for listening to She Aced That, and we'll see you next Wednesday.